In the third part of our business, which is looking at franchise development opportunities for a varied number of U.S., European, and Asian brands, I think one needs to recognize that franchising is not necessarily the right business model for certain countries. If we look at China, for example, China is still a very immature market, and finding master franchise partners is extremely difficult. And in addition to that, so far the success rate of sub-franchising to individual franchisees has not been good. So we would argue in a market like China, when you look at all the successful chains today, the majority of them are direct-owned stores. Whether it's Starbucks, whether it's Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, even the Chinese chains, which have 200 to 300 units, some of them as much as 500 units, they pretty much own all their stores. So if you're going to enter a market like China, you really need to look at a joint venture or a direct-owned operation. Having said that, in a market like India or the Philippines, there's actually a developed franchise system. Particularly in the Philippines, there's a very robust franchise market with lots of sub-franchising and many, many chains with 200, 300, 400 units. So Philippines would be a market, even though it's a developing country, it has a franchise culture, perhaps because of US influence over the years. But the Philippines is one area where you actually could develop a franchising business, even though it's an emerging market. Now, if you compare that to an Indonesia, where there's very, very little sub-franchising, it really depends on the country. India is one of those countries where master franchises are possible. Some regional sub-franchising is possible, but individual franchises are still fraught with difficulty. So companies, particularly American companies who are the most active in looking at master franchises, they tend to look at markets like the Middle East, which is the easiest market to go to, but the scalability in the Middle East isn't very high. And if you look at where the world is going, which is developing Asia, which will be over 40% or more than 45% of global GDP, and India and China, which is going to make up a $10 trillion consumer market with 1 billion middle-class consumers, you have to go into those markets. And in the Indian case, you probably can enter through multiple master franchise agreements, but in China, you really have to bite the bullet. And if you want to go into that market, you really have to make a commitment by deploying capital and at least building an economic model that works, or proof of concept, before you can really attract other Chinese partners to be interested.